Agricultural Research Council of Nigerian Television. My name is Joshua Isha, and of course the program is Back to Farm. Today on Back to Farm, we're in a yam farm. Yam is a tuber crop that is mostly consumed in Africa, most especially in Nigeria. It is used for pounded yam. You can also use it for fries and what have you. And Nigeria is a major exporter of yam around the world. So let's stay glued on your TV set as we're going to be taking you on all you need to know about the yam tuber. Stay tuned. Nigeria is by far the largest producer of yams, accounting for over 70 to 76% of the world's production. According to the Food and Agriculture Organization report in 1985, Nigeria produced 18.3 billion tons of yam from 1.5 million hectares, representing 73.8% of total yam production in Africa. According to figures, yam production in Nigeria has nearly doubled since 1985, with Nigeria producing 35.017 million metric tons, with value equivalent of 5.654 billion US dollars. In perspective, the world's second and third largest producers of yam is Cote d'Ivoire and Ghana, only produce 6.9 and 4.8 million tons of yams, respectively. According to the International Institute of Tropical Agriculture, Nigeria accounts for about 70% of the world production, amounting to 17 million tons from land area 2,838,000 hectares under yam cultivation. Yam is in the class of root and tubers that is a staple of Nigeria and West African diet, which provides some 200 calories of energy per capita daily in Nigeria. In many yam producing areas, it is said that yam is food and food is yam. However, the production of yam in Nigeria is substantially short and cannot meet the growing demands at its prevalent level of use. It also has an important social status in gathering and religious function, which is assessed by the size of yam holding one possessiveness. Yam, a tropical crop in the genus Dioscorea, has as many as 600 species, out of which 6 are economically important staple species. These are Dioscorea rotundata, white Guinea yam, closely related to Dioscorea coenensis, another domesticated yam widely consumed in West Africa. Both are derived from the white progenitor Dioscorea ferrefescens. Dioscorea alata, purple yam, originally from Oceania. Dioscorea bufifera, area yam cultivated primarily for its bulbils. Dioscorea domitorum, trifoliate yam, similar to Dioscorea hispida. Dioscorea esculenta, lesser yam, Chinese yam, Asian origin. Out of these, Dioscorea rotunda, white yam, and Dioscorea alata, water yam, are the most common and most economically important species in Nigeria. Yams are grown in coastal region in rainforest and wood savanna and sub-savanna habitats. Other tubers consumed in Nigeria. The farmland production system in yam consists of wetland. 20% of yams are under this category. Upland, 50% farms in this category. Types are a combination of the two species, 30% by the balance farm. A study carried out on the efficiency of tree system to improve crop output to meet growing demands for this crop indicates that the wetland yam-based enterprises are the most economically efficient, which means economic efficiency of 0.80 followed by upland yams-based enterprises, with means efficiency of 0.79. The combination of wetland, upland, yamland-based enterprises is assessed as the least economically efficient, with mean efficiency of 0.76. Hence, it has been recommended that more yam should be grown more on wetlands. Another recommendation made it to adopt the yam miniset technology developed by the International Institute for Tropical Agriculture IITA and the National Root Crop Research Institute NRCR. Although it is grown widely in Nigeria, the area where it's grown most is the Benue State, land area of 34,059 km square. One of the states in Benue Valley of Nigeria where the labor-intensive practices are still the norm and the land holding are small. In this state, especially among Tiv people, the size of the yam farm or the tonnage of yams produced becomes the social status of the farmer. Because of high level of yam production in the state of Benue, Benue State is crowned as the Nigerian food basket. Yams are planted on mounds rather than flat slopes, depending on the hydromorphic nature of the soils, which are generally of loose soil suitable to grow roots and tuber crops. While yam production issues have been stressed on agronomical practices, a research study carried out on the economic efficiency of this crop grown in this region with small farm holdings, which is labor intensive, reveals that land labor and material, fertilizers and chemicals, credit and extension services input have a significant bearing on the yielding of yam in the region. The Zaki Abiam International Yam Market is the biggest market for a single product in Nigeria. Now, let's move on to the cultivation practices. Yam is grown on free-draining, sandy and fertile soil. After clearing the first fallow, land is prepared in form of mound or ridge or heap of 1 meter height. The yams are recommended for such soil condition in Nigeria are white yam or white Guinea yam and water yam or yellow yam. Planting is done by seed yam or cut sets from where tubers. 1 day before planting, the tuber have to be subjected to treatment with wood ash or a fungicide to prevent damage to the soils. The sets are planted at an interval of 15 to 20 centimeters with the cut face facing up. Mulching is essential during October, November, with dry grass or plant debris weighed down with balls of mold. Dosage of fertilizer application as essential is decided after chemical analysis of the soil samples. Manual weeding by hoeing is done 3 or 4 times depending on the rate of weed growth. 2 stakes, each of 2 meters, are used for stacking the plants to vine over it. 1 for 2 plants with the other used for bracing with the adjacent stakes. Sorghum stovers are also used for this purpose in savanna land. Pest and disease control is advised by cultural control and chemical methods. The pests which affect the plant are nematodes such as fruit knot, melodigen, and yam nematode, and insects such as yam shoot beetle, yam tuber beetle, and cricket weeding of the field is essential, and maintaining a 2 to 3 meters weed-free border around the field is to be ensured. Disease resistance are normally recommended for use. Harvesting is done before the vines become dry and soil becomes dry and hard. Generally, a yield of 10 to 15 tons per hectare for the white yam and 16 to 25 tons for water yam are obtained by following prescribed management practices. The harvested yam are stored by tying them with ropes. They have a shelf life of about 5 months. Warehouse where they are stored should be made rodent-proof, with the metal base and wire netting rotten boards and sprouted boards should be removed. Let's look at the uses of yam. Tuber is the main part of yam plant, which has high carbohydrate content, low in fat and protein, and provides a good source of energy. Unpeeled yam has vitamin C. Yam sweet in flavor is consumed as boiled yam, as cooked vegetable, or fufu or fried in oil and then consumed. It is often pounded into a thick paste after boiling and is consumed with soup. It is also processed into flour for use in the preparation of the paste. Its medicinal use as a heart stimulant is attributed to its chemical composition, which consists of alkaloids of saponin and sapogenins. It uses an industrial starch has also been established as the quality of some of the species is also provides more starch is in cereals. Festivity restrictions are also associated with yam, which is the staple in southern Nigeria. A yam festival is held every year to mark the harvesting of this crop. The village chiefs and traditional title holders of the land in Nigeria who grow yam make it a religious practice by not consuming yam till it is offered to the gods. During this festival, villagers offer prayers, thanking their ancestral gods for the blessings of the land and the women fertility. The festivity observed in villages is in the form of a parade and traditional dances. Locate suitable farmland for yam farming. Yams prefer growing in an upperland and they should be planted in a well-drained field. Optimal yield are obtained from sandy, loamy, and silt loamy soil through acceptable yields are also obtained from clay loamy soils, particularly those high in organic matter, while some yams does relatively well on stony soil. It is however not advisable to plant yam on stony hard soil. Forest land in the most tropical regions offers ideal environment for growing yam both in soil quality and climate condition. Now, let's talk about preparation of the land. Properly clear the bush and burn the grasses with the fire at the appropriate time. Yam is best planted within the months of February and April when the rainy season is just beginning. These are the best periods for land preparation. After the bush has been cleared, make heaps of loose soil of about 1 meter in height and 1 meter apart. Ridge bed types are also grown for yam planting. When the latter is used, the ridge should be constructed 1 meter apart. In the case of sloping or rolling fields, construction of ridges should be followed the contour to minimize soil erosion. These essentially in yam farming. Now, let's look at the preparation of the set. Set are whole tubers or tuber that is cut in pieces used for planting. If the tuber is small, it can be planted whole, but if it is big, it has to be cut in pieces to the size of 60 kg to 100 kg. As a result, the bigger the set used, the higher the expected yield, but shouldn't be too big, else you'll be wasting resources. Set should be taken from healthy tubers of healthy plants. Appropriate set size are not sliced, while larger tubers are sliced into the desired site size so that each set has sufficient skin surface area. Thus, 4 types of set are obtained are named according to their position on the tuber as follows: head set, middle sets, and tail sets for the tuber species, pieces, and whole sets for the whole tubers. Cut sides of the set are treated with ash or white fungicide and are air dried. After airing dry, set either pre-sprouted or planted directly. Because the emergence period of most freshly prepared sets in the field lasts from 3 to 12 weeks, it is desirable to pre-sprout the set before they are planted. This procedure assures the emergence of sets when planted and minimize expenses on weeding before set emergence. To pre-sprout the set, a shallow ditch is dug in a clear shaded area under trees, under bananas, or under a shade constructed for the purpose. Sets are placed side by side in the ditch and covered with dry grasses or dry banana leaves. In cases where no ditch is dug, the set can be placed side by side on the ground instead. Set are grouped according to type. For set cut from large tuber, the orientation is either skin up or crown sideways. Sets can be covered with a thin layer of soil and are watered at least once a week until at least set have produced sprout. With set pre-sprouting, it may be desired to stagger planting land preparation since set do not sprout at the same time. In general, whole set and head set sprout about of set types. Planting pre-sprout set can however also be done at one time. To prevent sprout from becoming too long, set that have already sprouted are removed from the pre-sprouting set bed and placed on a platform in a shady place. The process is repeated every week until the desired number of sprout set is obtained. The sprout set on the platform are not watered. Sets should be planted before sprout become very long. Now, let's look at the planting procedure. The usual planting time for white yam is March to April, depending on the time the tuber dormancy is broken, as indicated by the sprouting of tubers under storage and upon start of rain in particular area. This means that you have to start the pre-sprouting process well ahead of the planting time, at least 3 or 3 weeks. Like I said before, the distance between the planted yam should be 1 meter or 1 meter at a depth of about 10 centimeter. When planting coincides with a dry spell, set a plant in any orientation about 15 centimeter deep if the field not mulch. About 20,000 to 27,000 sets are needed for 1 hectare farmland. Pre-sprouted sets. Sets are usually planted at the start of raining if the field cannot be irrigated or will be mulched. The same planting distance and depth for non-pre-sprouted sets are used. When planting sets should be oriented so that sprouts are up. To achieve these, the crop surface has to face the ground. Now, let's look at weed control. The number of times a yam farm needs to be weeded depends on the use of pre-sprouted sets, the application of mulch, and rates of weed growth. If non-pre-sprouted sets are used and the field is not mulched, 2 to 3 weeding operations are needed before the yam canopy covers the space between rows to partially suppress weed growth. If pre-sprouted sets are used and the field is mulched, at most only 2 weeds performed about 2 months apart are needed. Hand tools are the only method recommended. Use of other methods such as animal-powered plows are dangerous to the plants, as vines may get damaged in the process. Use of herbicide may be acceptable in some areas. Now, let's talk about the stacking the yam vines. Plants are stacked before vines are start crawling on the ground. The recommended stack length is 5 to 10 meters and a stack every plant. Bamboo poles are the most desirable stacking materials. Similarly, materials that can support the yam vines for at least 7 months can be used as stakes. There are various methods of stacking. 3 of the most popular are as follows: the trellis method, modified trellis method, pyramid method. Now, let's look at fertilizer application. A hectare of water yam is able to remove about 128 kg nitrogen, 17 kg phosphorus, and 164 potassium from the soil. These represent more or less its fertilizer requirement. In the case of white yam, no information is available regarding the amount of nutrient it can remove from the soil. However, like other yams, it requires fertilizer requirements should be similar to that of water yam. The level of soil fertility is in the field and the amount of fertilizer that need to be added can be determined by submitting the soil samples to any agricultural institute or the IITA for analysis. The assistance of the local farm management technician should be sought regarding these. Application of inorganic fertilizer. The recommended amount of fertilizer is split into 2. One half applied about 1 month after emergence and other half applied after 2 months after first application. The band method of fertilizer application is used with the fertilizer being placed about 10 cm away from the plant. Application of compost. Yams respond well to organic fertilizers like compost. A mixture of decayed organizer matters composed of plant and animals' manures. The compost is mixed with the soil while the field is being prepared, or it is placed just before the spots were set out to be planted. Now, finally, let's look at the harvesting time method. Yams are ready for harvest when its foliage. Yams are ready for harvest when its foliage is already yellowing or drying up. The yellowing drying up period of the foliage usually starts in the late November and lasts until February the following year. Tubers, especially those intended to be used as set for next season, planting are harvested at the later part of the period. Tubers intended for consumption or for the market are sometimes harvested earlier, even before foliage falling sets in. A hoe or a similar hand tool is used to dig around the tuber to loosen it from the soil. Then the tuber is lifted and clinging soil particles are removed. The vine is cut at the base to complete the harvesting. For sanding soil sticky sharpened as one, sometimes it is used to dig the tuber. For clay soil and for varieties with deeply buried tubers, other specialized harvests like cutlass may be used. Whatever tool is used to harvest tubers, it is important that care should be exercised so as not to injure yam while digging, and that may reduce the market value and hastens decay. After tubers are cleaned, they are collected and placed in a rattan basket of bamboo or wooden craft lined with soft materials such as banana leaves, paper or grass. Straw, healthy and diseased tubers are placed in separate containers. The tubers are arranged in containers in 2 or 4 layers, depending on the tuber size, and the soft materials that can serve as a cushion is placed between layers and spaces between tubers in a layer. The container is then covered with pepper or banana leaves and a string net or woven over the mouth of the container. If the tubers are to be transported immediately to the market, no cover is provided for the container if the tubers are to be transported to a nearby storage place. When you are done harvesting, take your product to the market and make sales. Yam farming is lucrative as yam is a very important commodity in the market and sells fast.
I'm sure you had a very great time on Back to Farm today. The program Back to Farm is a program that comes to you courtesy of Agricultural Research Council of Nigeria, where we x-ray some amazing Nigerian crops and how they are grown and the processes in which you can actually go into agriculture. And today, of course, we've been looking at the yam tuber. Yes, of course, I'm sure you must have learned 1 or 2 things about the yam. Yam is usually consumed in Nigeria, and you can't dispute the fact that a typical Nigerian would definitely tell you he likes pounded yam. Well, until some other time, we'll be extracting some other crop. But for now, it's bye from this end. See you some other time.